Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Firefly Review Board. I'm here with my friends Avi and Eddie, and we're here to talk about The Last of Us, Episode 1. So, yeah, I was very personally very excited for this premiere episode. I think all of us here were, and yeah, let's just start off just general thoughts. What did you guys think of the episode? Or
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I think it had some like really great beats overall. From like I feel like they hadn't they stepped further for far enough away from the game, which I've also played. I think all of us in this group have also played. I feel like they've gone far enough away from like directly imitating beat for beat, shot for shot of what the video game was, while also staying true to like some of the core elements and core aspects to it. So I'm really excited about it because I think it's giving some of the more holistic picture of like The Last of Us and the characters within it than in the beginning of The Last of Us video game, which was more of just Joel's perspective than anything else.
Yeah, dude, honestly, Last of Us, like both those games are two of my favorite games of all time. So there's a lot of hype like going into this series and a lot of skepticism too, because I don't want to say there are no good video game adaptations, but the bar is relatively low.
it's
Um,
yeah, it's in hell.
yeah. So just coming out like with this show, like from the guy who did Chernobyl, Craig Mazin, and Neil Druckmann, who wrote both The Last of Us games as a showrunner, like
Mm.
the series actually nails the tone of what the game is supposed to be.
Mm.
There are moments, I know some people are complaining that it's like too faithful of an adaptation now, which I don't know, you can't make
Is it?
anyone happy anymore. So it's like, what do you do then? But I don't know, there are shots that are from the game which I was like, oh, that's cool to see that. But it
Yeah.
wasn't just all that. It like
Yeah.
dived into more of the characters, giving had taking like 20-30 minutes with Sarah in the beginning, like versus then like the 5-10 minutes you get with the game. I still think it's very impactful in the game, but just doing something like that is sick, you know? So I think it translated perfectly on screen. Still skeptical to see how it goes, but overall I really like the direction they're going with so far. And yeah, casting is just perfect.
Yeah.
It really is.
Pedro Pascal, man. I mean, can he do no wrong? Can he
Dude,
do
No, he
no?
is going.
amazing. Yeah.
He is going bat for bat for bat, just nailing it, bro.
Dude,
Like,
seriously.
didn't realize after Game of Thrones how much I would love to see him in like anything he's in.
Seriously,
Yeah.
like his post Game of Thrones career has been so successful. Like
Blown up.
even if you didn't like Wonder Woman 1984, like his performance
You
was
like him.
cool. Like that was a good, that was awesome.
For sure. And yeah, no, I agree with you, Avi. I think like I personally really liked the way that they use Sarah as the just the opening aspect of this TV show, and just using her as a way to showcase us the world and the changing of the world slowly over time. Because in the video game, it does do that, but and I think this is one of the things where the limitations of video games versus film, where in a video game you are quite literally in the perspective of Sarah, right?
Yeah.
But because you're playing a game, you want to keep the engagement up, and you're trying to make sure that people are having fun with it. You're really making it as quick of an exchange as you possibly can. So you leave it up to the character to explore and find out all the news and information of the world, but it's very easy to miss out on all that. Whereas with a film, you can spend a lot more time developing that and showcasing their perspective, also showcasing how the world is slowly crumbling around them. Like that one scene where the old lady behind her is tweaking and like easily corrupted or
Protected.
infected by this fungus. But like a scene like that, it would be awesome to see in a video game, but also simultaneously, it's like, how do you do that, right? Um, which is kind of an interesting thing to note. But personally, I think the biggest thing that I loved about this, as opposed to the video game, was just the beginning scene altogether. Just that whole, and I think it was like the 1960s, where they're talking about the fungus infection of the ant, like that scene really did change the pace of The Last of Us for me. Where
Oh, like the opening of the show.
like the very beginning.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's why I was like, okay, this is what we're getting into. Like, that's something you can do in a game. They didn't, but it's also like, it's just interesting to see like, oh, how are we going to ground? Because it's not a zombie game, right? It's like it's an infection, which is cool in Last of Us, like the series as well, and it's cool like seeing that translated into like, okay, how do we make like a post-apocalyptic sci-fi like game translate onto screen and like keep it grounded, you know? And just opening with that scene works. Like
it's so effective, man.
Like I love how the guide says, he's like presenting, it's like, but what if the world gets warmer? And then you're like, okay, yeah.
There it is. There it is.
Well, goddamn.
Dude, it was such a like smart way to open the show, especially for like new viewers who haven't played the games or anything. Like you're just in the world immediately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, I guess like just jumping into that, what are some other noticeable differences between the video games and the show? This is the first episode of the show. Have you guys taken note of either good or bad, or just like love it or hate it? Like, what are your general thoughts? Whoever wants to speak first.
Oh, you are.
Okay. First of all,
we're like, you.
Just seeing Joel in that shirt and like from the back, you know, just like, dude, that's the boy right there. Like Pedro Pascal like nails like the mannerism completely and like the tone of like who Joel is supposed to be. One difference I did really like is when they opened with the 20 years later shot, and they open with that kid who Joel ends up like throwing away in the fire. And that's just such a brutal way to also like show you what The Last of Us is about. Like they're not going to hold back on this world. And it's interesting too, because I read that the first episode was actually supposed to end right there, with Joel throwing the kid in the fire. And then HBO asked them to lengthen the first episode into what we get now, which I think both of them work. Yeah.
No, for sure. It's also really good characterization for Joel, especially after 20 years of seeing this guy, where it's like he's relatively normal.
He looks dead inside. Like he's like he looks dead inside. He's like, this is a child. I feel nothing.
I don't care.
Yeah, you know. But it's also like I think it does a great job of kind of showing the like just how hard it is to just make credits to do something. You get a few pieces of paper that gets you food or like gets you rations to eat and stuff. Like obviously like people are going to result to smuggling contraband from one side to the other. I think that was a really interesting kind of take on that, you know?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like they're starting to vilify Joel way earlier and more in your face, which I like knowing the direction the first one especially ends too. Like they're putting those hints in the game that it's like you're not going to be confused. Like Joel is a good person, yes, but he will do anything to like survive, you know? That's the point.
But that's the thing, like, is he a good
what
person?
He did to that security guard?
Yeah. Dude, and you see it in Ellie's eyes too. Like she likes it when she's being protected. And like with part 2, like the whole point is Joel passed those traits onto her, you know, but not going too far into it, but they're setting it up early. Like they know who these characters are. And like, it's just gratifying playing those games. And you're like, I know what you're doing. This is fun, you know?
Speaking of like knowing who the characters are, I have to say, man, Bella Ramsey is nailing it as Ellie, bro.
Yeah.
Like, just, I don't know, at least to me. Like,
her count to 10 was amazing.
That's like the perfect way to start who Ellie is.
Yeah.
or even just like, just her kicking like the food over, look, the way she did it, just like a fuck you. It's just
I also love their relationship, how they're first introduced with each other, you know? The fact that it's like he's there for it, because I'm pretty sure, like, it's been a minute since I played the game, so a lot of this might seem new to me just because I haven't played it in a while. But the way that Ellie and Joel were like first introduced to each other, I thought was brilliant. You see the power dynamic, you see how their relationship is starting off, right? Which I think is starting off on, let's face it, not the best footing, right? He's literally holding a gun to her face, right? We're not off to a great start
Yeah.
with them, you know. And I think that's what's beautiful, like you were saying, Avi, is that he's keying in onto like where this relationship could potentially blossom to by the end of this series, by the end of this season.
Exactly.
I'm really curious. But going back to like him beating the shit out of the security guard, I think the character's name was Lee. Sorry, but like I know it's a little thing, but like it looked identical to how the video game was when he was beating the shit out of Henry. And then Henry's like, "You hit hard." And he was like, "I was trying to kill you." I love the physicality. He absolutely nails it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
There are some really great similarities, like you're saying as well, Avi. I think like the way they handled some of those shots in the car, the fact that they stayed in the car was brilliant because that's how you were as the character or as the audience member when you were playing the video game. Right? Yeah. So to see it and like I know there were some shots that are outside of the car, but like predominantly you're staying inside of that thing until you get you get hit and the car flips over, which is
like genuinely like that cinematic move to do in like 2013 was ahead of its time, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like even like have you guys seen A Quiet Place Part 2?
Yeah.
Like that opening for that movie, right when I was watching, I'm like, this is Last of Us.
Yes,
like John Krasinski just remaking Last of Us.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. Yes,
it's such an inspirational shot, and it's still like it's still amazing the fact that they maintained that. But there's like one particular moment that I was kind of happy, or not necessarily happy, but I did think that it was a really good choice to change where you were in the car and you're in the back, you're seeing it from like the back seat, right? And then you see them driving and they're about to like get that family's just on the road, right? And then just a hard cut to Joel's face, and you just see him just straight up like stern, being like, "Do not stop." like, right. And I love to see his expression in that. I think that was actually a really cool choice because we're already used to seeing it from the backseat perspective from Sarah, but like to show the dichotomy between Joel's brother, whose name I'm forgetting right now.
Tommy.
Tommy, yeah. Tommy. To show the dichotomy between Tommy and Joel, it like you can see it visually on their faces. It was really cool, and it's like choices like that I think really do differentiate between like the TV show and the video game, which I think is really dope. It is cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're kind of spending a little bit more time on developing that kind of how they look at the world. I think Joel is seeing it from a father's perspective, and later on, a previous father to a living kid, right? And so he's looking out for number one. He's looking out for like himself, right? Where I feel like Tommy's character is ultimately going to join the Dragonflies, right? And he's going to want to hope and pray and work towards a better future, even if he's not necessarily going to see it. And I think I think they are establishing that breadcrumb early on into the making of this.
Yeah, it's interesting too because Tommy's character, like when we'll get to that part, like you see how he's coped with the trauma and the tragedy in his own way, which is completely different from Joel. You know, like Joel has like kind of desolated himself, like he's angry, he's cynical. And Tommy tried to move on, and it's just like how you deal with tragedy in the first place, which The Last of Us is like about anyways, like as the series goes along.
Yeah.
One part I did want to say too is I love the dynamic, what you were saying with Joel and Ellie's first meeting, but the way they meet, I actually think is better in the game because it's not all happening at once. Like Marlene isn't shot. First, like they get Robert, Marlene shoots Robert, and then in the game, Marlene's like, I need you to come with me because I need you to deliver cargo. And I think that word is so important because you just think, oh, like, what is that, you know? And then you meet Ellie and it's like, oh, the cargo's a kid. I feel like that impact was a little lost with meshing all of that together at once.
I can see that.
Makes sense.
But how they like went with it was really cool. Like him just stepping on her knife And I just love, like, she's just looking up at, like, that. It's so well done, you know, like
Yeah.
you get who these characters are immediately. And like, that's what, same in the game where Joel is just like, no, I don't want to like take her. Like, what are you talking about? Like, they nailed that like completely.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I also just think that for me, the plot, the reason why Joel and Teresa, or Anna Torv's character, or Anna Torv portraying Teresa, like the reason why they're
Nice.
doing it makes more sense to me. It's like that they had to find Tommy because something bad might have happened to him. I don't remember what happened, like the reason why you're looking for Robert in the game, and I think that it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, but
You
they
know,
like
like,
actually take 20 minutes to show you more. Like the thing is like, oh, Robert took our guns. Like,
you know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
it's a MacGuffin because it's just
Yeah.
like, fuck it, we just gotta get.
We just need a plot device to get him to go do something.
Yeah. And like the game, right, when it's 20 years later, it's when Joel wakes up, you know? But
Yeah.
we get to see the 15, 20 minutes with Joel and Tess in the show, which I liked a lot. Like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it just
cool.
picks up right after that. Because she's in the building while she explodes. You see like the guys actually like beat her up, and then she comes to Joel and like he's
Yeah.
ready to like bounce immediately.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're like it just for me it paced better and it was a more
Mhm.
rounded reason for them to find Robert, right? Other than like them beating up Tess, it's like, well, we need this engine to go save Tommy. If he's
Yeah, because Joel wasn't ever actually looking for Tommy in the beginning of the game.
Right.
Like
He
that
just
wasn't
ran
the plot
across him.
point. So I think that's interesting too. And I think that emotional impact's gonna be a lot better what they're setting up too, because it is like a brotherly relationship, you know, like
Yeah.
that moment still hits in the game for sure. But
Yeah.
just setting that up early, I think is a really smart move.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because like I feel like in the game it's kind of like, oh, and I have my brother, he's still a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like
And
after the intro, yeah.
yeah, it's like I was super close with him, and then I don't know what happened. He just ran away, you know.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
they
I
are
think
attaching to it.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
Marlene definitely does mention Tommy at some point too, but it's definitely not as specific as what they're doing here.
Yeah, it wasn't like a direct impact like in this show. And speaking of Marlene, I really like her portrayal in this. And I feel like she was kind of a non-character in the video game, but in this it's like, oh no, you're not. You just have no time for bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, you're just wasting no time at all.
I think it's cool because, well, Marlene shows up at the end again too, but then I think in the game they do a really good job where it's like she is the only reason, like she's the catalyst for Ellie and Joel meeting, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I like that Joel in the game, going back to that thing too, where Joel and Tess only have a moment with Marlene before they meet up with the rest of the Fireflies and Ellie, because I think that moment in the game when it's just those three, you understand their relationship better than just in the show where it's like, oh, you know Marlene, oh, she knows Joel and Tess, like, oh, take this kid, you gotta go, you know?
What?
Like, yeah, like immediately.
no, for sure.
But it's
there's
cool
a
that-
small little. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Has there ever been a video game adaptation where like the actual voice actor whose likeness is based off of the game to translates on the screen? Like, I don't know if that's ever been the case. And I think that's just super cool seeing that. Like, you see that her and like, that's Marlene. Like, it literally is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and you're seeing that more and more nowadays, where like people are like they'll sign up to do a video game, but they'll only do it if their likeness is imprinted into the character.
Mhm.
Right, and that's a big thing right now. You know, one off the top of my head is just the
Keanu.
yeah,
In Cyberpunk.
Big Daddy Keanu Reeves. That's
yes,
right.
Sir,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
But yeah, it is really kind of interesting to seeing all that done. One little thing that like was a little nod that I just really appreciated, because obviously that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time looking for scissors and tape. And
They didn't make a shiv the whole episode.
Yeah, he didn't
I
make a
know he needs
bullshit.
he needs a workbench.
I just need one shot of Ellie just going ham with a brick, dude. That's what I need.
No, exactly. Just throw a brick at the guy.
That actually is one of my
Exactly.
favorite things about the setup is this. It like there's a scene where like his bed is just a foundation of bricks, which I just fucking love. Like of
I didn't
course
know.
it would
That's
be.
awesome.
Of course it would be, you know. For me
Also,
personally,
wow.
when I played the game, if you had the choice between a brick or a bottle, you had to go with the brick.
Oh, 100%.
You had to
Yeah.
go with the
You
brick.
have to.
Of
It's gonna
course.
hurt more, you know. It's a bottle of break, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to hurt somebody. Like,
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but like I think that kind of just goes into the production design of it and of like the show as a whole. But I really like that kind of nod to it. I also think the way they designed the, you know, like the city and how like run down it was. I mean, it really kind of what was interesting about it is the fact that it was placed in 2023. I'm not sure of like why they placed that date. I don't know if that's what they said in the video game.
I don't
Um,
remember.
but I thought that was an interesting choice because I felt like it would be just as more terrifying if it was like 2026 or something like that, where it's not our present day, but it could be our future, you know. And I think
Mhm.
that's one thing, especially when you're dealing with pandemic, you know, hysteria and problems that this show is talking about, right? And we're obviously just coming out of, if not still going through, the COVID pandemic, right? So I think playing into that just a little bit more by moving the date might have helped out with some of that um like tension that could have been just built. But not that it's like detracting from it. I still think it's an amazing episode and all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah.
I feel you.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about for this final category where we think the show is gonna go from here. Do we think it's gonna stick to the source material as it did in the first episode, or do you guys think it's going to transition to more of its own independent voice? What do you guys think?
So I love that last shot of the first episode where they show the buildings like on top of each other, and that's like
Yes.
directly out of the game. So they're gonna see some clickers next episode for sure.
Absolutely.
I
I'm
hope
so
there's some
excited.
sneaking around. Um,
If somebody doesn't like build a spike bomb, I'm gonna flip out. Okay.
Someone has to use a ship.
Yeah, man. They
I
gotta
just want
build
to
some
see
shit,
Joel
you
at
know?
at the workbench, just like upgrading things somehow. It's like I have 8 bolts. I can make a silencer.
What is this, you know? All right.
But,
That's good stuff. What
But
do
yeah,
you think, Fumbo? What do you
uh,
think?
yeah, no, definitely gonna see some clickers. We're definitely going to see. I'm really curious to see how combat's gonna work in this show because in the Last of Us video game, it's very much just like if you see an enemy, try to sneak, you're gonna fail, and then just body everyone. That's very basically what happens. But
Have enough shotgun shells.
exactly. But it crafts them.
Yeah.
But yeah, with this, I am curious to see how it's going to translate in a very grounded setting of avoiding all as much combat as you possibly can, while also making it very entertaining and real, right? So
mhm.
interested in that. I do predict that Teresa probably won't make it, or maybe she'll get to episode 3 at the beginning of episode 3 and then cap it. But I do think either the next episode or the following episode, Teresa's probably going to be gone.
Yeah, she's gonna get got. Okay. No, I'm really excited about seeing the kind of what they're gonna do with the like overrun, you know, greenery of the rundown city and the collapsing, you know, infrastructure. That's gonna be really interesting to me, and like how they handle like because in the game you're going like you're jumping up and down and finding ladders and crossing bridges. So overall, I'd say like I think they're sticking really close to the source material because I think they actually are fans of the game, right? The fact that they took some like artistic freedoms and went with it, and they landed still and stayed within kind of like the ethos of what the show is or what the game originally was. I think really gives a lot of people confidence, and not to mention it's an hour and a half like opening episode, right?
Yeah.
They took their time. They're doing it right. This is the thing that was so frustrating about Obi-Wan, or like take any series that really like wants to do something cool but doesn't respect the source material enough to actually do it properly, to do it justice, right? One of the questions we were talking about earlier was movies versus series, and I like if anything, this is in my mind, video game series adaptations are way better than movie video game adaptations, just because of how long video games typically are, unless it's like Mario Brothers, but they're trying to make a movie about that right now with a non-Italian actor, so they're doing great.
He's so cool.
Doing one,
You know, so but I'm really excited about where it's going. I'm hoping that they keep to this current pace, because in my book it's it's a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 for me.
for sure. All right, well, that pretty much puts us to a wrap. Episode 1 of the Firefly Review Board. We'll be back next week for episode 2.
Wait, we gotta review it. We gotta give our score for it.
Oh,
You want to do? Are we doing the Avi? Are we doing the Avi star system? You want to do the Avi?
I'll do whatever, dude.
we could do triangles if you want, dude. No,
We have some circles.
I'm
It's just a
giving
shape,
4 bricks out of 5.
4. Oh, I love it.
There we
Yes,
go.
4 bricks out of 5.
Yeah.
What do you give it, Fumbo?
I'm gonna give it 5 shivs.
I'll give it 3 spike bombs. 3 spike bombs.
Nice.
All right, guys. Yo, this was fun. This has been the Firefly Review Board. If you would like to see more stuff like this, please leave a like and comment down below. And like always, wash your hands, people. There's an infection.